So far this semester we have basically talked about various types of digital marketing strategies and also some tactics of how to implement these digital marketing strategies, which of course is natural because this course is in digital marketing, but nevertheless it's important that your digital is not a standalone thing, that's something that you do a little bit on the side. It is important that your digital strategies and tactics are integrated into the whole or the larger marketing strategy. And this is what I'm going to talk about in this video under the umbrella term of IMC, or Integrated Marketing Communications. So IMC came into the marketing literature in the 90s and became a big thing in the early 2000s, which is when I did my master's degree in Brisbane, when I specialized in IMC. So IMC is a relatively simple concept actually, and it talks about the process of managing customer relationship to drive brand value. So it's a matter of having a purposely built branding strategy and managing customers, relationships with customers in that. So it talks about integrating promotional tools so that they work together in harmony. So back in the days where I did my masters, that had to do with integrating your branding on your storefront with your advertising on billboards or TV, or perhaps some banner ads on the internet. But now this is becoming even more important because businesses put a larger and larger budget towards social media in particular. And the social media tend to develop their own sort of raison d'être and their own sort of language and way of operating on a particular platform. And it's important that whatever you do on these platforms is actually integrated with how the business operates overall and how consumers perceive you in an offline and online context. Now, leaving aside for a second the importance of having an integrated approach to online and offline, these days we're also talking about an integrated digital strategy. And what that has to do with is what's often referred to as omnichannel marketing, because you can't afford to just have a standalone Facebook page, for example, or a standalone Instagram account or website for that matter. And that is because as people go through a purchase journey or a journey of engaging with your business, they will use a whole range of different platforms and channels to reach you. And as such, it's important that you purposely manage and build those channels so that you're thinking about, okay, so at what stage of the customer's journey to purchase or the behavior that we want them to perform, at what stage of that may they visit or do they actually visit our Facebook page, for example? And then you purposely build that page accordingly so that it becomes a stepping stone in the customer's journey to the behavior that you want them to perform. This infographic here from David Chaffee is actually quite useful. So click on the link and have a look at it and study it a little bit on your own. So it looks at the interactions and the value that you get out of the consumers over time. And as we can see, this is a great example of omnichannel digital marketing and the importance of not putting all your eggs in one basket, but actually purposely building in things that you want the consumers to do across a whole range of channels, both paid, owned and earned type of media. Because consumers are not going to come in at the very top of this channel where they already go straight into making a purchase and I think your brand is great and they love you and so forth. That sort of takes time to develop, and you got to use other channels to do that. You may use search marketing, paid search, paid per click at the beginning to get the customers to come in to create and generate that demand. Then you may use social media for the customer to get familiar with the brand and the products and what other customers say about it, all the way up to personalized loyalty programs and then remarketing at the end. Here's food for some great blog posts on this chart here as well. The original idea of IMC mainly talked about how to integrate a message so that it looked the same and it felt the same regardless of what media consumers would see it through. And although originally it talked about the importance of getting feedback from the customer and then getting this feedback through a different channel most of the time, and then implement that and integrate it into the brand manager in the future, it was very much a marketer-controlled brand. So the marketer were like the puppet master that had the consumer's brain on a string. But these days, modern technology is cutting off those strings, as I've tried to poorly, I'd say, illustrate on the infographic behind me. So we have the information that we need online. We can look at, we can compare prices from other retail outlets. We can look at product specifications. We can read product reviews to see what other customers have said about it, and so forth. And through social media, we can also create our own content, which means that we can drive the brand message. We can actually alter, personalize, or co-create the brand meaning. And in order to be successful in IMC these days, the marketer actually needs to allow the customer to use these scissors and cut off the strings of our brains and allow customers to co-create the value of the brand together with the marketer. So in this graph we can see the evolution of IMC over time and how the power of the customer has grown, and we can see me moving along this graph as well, as I was first introduced in my undergraduate degree to IMC in the 90s, where it was viewed as a quite linear process. So the marketer would put out a message, seek some feedback from the customer. They will get that via perhaps a letter in the mail or have some sort of a database to get that from salespeople in store, for example, and then adjust slightly the brand message. Then the focus changed in the 2000s to a more integrative brand approach that was more relationship focused. So the focus was on developing brand values and focusing on what the customer felt and thought about the brand, and then harness those positive associations to build brand loyalty further. Now, through modern media, this has then completely changed again. And now we got to look at a negotiated brand where we need to, the marketer is more of a mediator that mediates the interactions and the conversations and the narratives that customers have. Customers are out there having engagement and having conversations about the brands without the marketer even present, and that also drives the meaning of the brand and what the customers perceive the brand to be. And instead of the marketer going in and trying to control that, the new way to do IMC is to allow that to happen and try to mediate and try to steer the conversation in the directions that you want. And that's the newest evolution of IMC. So how do we manage this new reality of IMC and make sure that we get the customer's contribution to properly help co-create the brand? The paper that I wanted to have a look at talks about 4 key issues here. We need a community-centric orientation. We need to look at emerging strategies, a hybrid communication mix, and finally reciprocity-based assessment of what's going on with our communication. So it reaffirms the original type of IMC that it's got to be an outside-in focus. So it's always about the customer and how they derive value about the brand. But it's not linear in the same way, and it's not marketer controlled. So let's look at these 4 key issues. These days it's naive to assume that the only channels where the customers will discuss your brand are the official ones that you set up and that you control. Rather, customers talk about your brands, talk about your products in their own channels, and they sometimes also set up their own channels to as fan pages to discuss your brand, or hate pages for that matter. And it's important that you keep track of these and look for these, which is what the narcissistic person would do from time to time: Google your name to see what comes up. As a brand manager, you should be Googling your brand to see what comes up as well. So a good example here in the article was about an Italian ice cream called Winner Taco that was pulled off the market. And some customers would started a group on Facebook where they really wanted to bring this ice cream back. And I did that through a whole range of various memes. And at the end of it, the ice cream came back. So let's look at some of these memes that they used. So this was the one that was used on the front page of this Facebook group. It's still up there, you can have a look at it. And various other memes that came up. I'm not condoning that. And using known logos and arguing for how they wanted this ice cream back as a royal baby, or I don't want to comment on that, nor that, and Nietzsche's moustache. So various ways of doing this. Customer-centric, customer-built forum, and obviously it's important for the business to see that these things are going on and respond accordingly. Putting this ice cream back on the market after this was obviously a good idea and profitable for the producer. Now, moving from a deliberate to an emergent strategy means that you are putting out little bits and pieces of a brand narrative and allowing and inviting the customer to come in and continue to build and co-create and drive this brand message. Now, many examples of that. So this was a few years back. Smith's run a competition where they say, create your own flavor, and then there was a few finalists, and then finally some products got commercialized and you could buy them in the store. Now, I'm not a big fan of this particular campaign because I actually sent in an entry to this competition where I suggested the coat of arms barbecue flavor with emu and kangaroo meat flavors, and then all of a sudden I see my idea copied with this dude on the chips bag, looking more like an actor than a real customer like me, and then allowing this vote to happen. But that aside, there's plenty of other examples of similar things. It can sometimes be a risky strategy because you need to evaluate what are your brand strengths, and you need to know a little bit about what the customer actually think about your brand before you launch these type of things. So when Taxis Australia, for example, invited Twitter users to go in and comment on their experiences with using their service, that backfired because there was a lot of customers that had negative experiences. So you need to be careful with what you put out and allow customers to co-create and continue to build your brand message. So moving from a pure to a hybrid communication mix means that you are no longer just focusing on, okay, so these are the channels that we want to use and here is our message and we control those, but you're also building in using social platforms in particular as listening posts where you pick up snippets of customer stories and build those into your branding strategies. Coca-Cola started about 10 years ago now with a new initiative that they call Liquid and Linked. So liquid means that you are allowing a sort of liquid flow of user-generated content and consumer narratives, and then taking up listening to what's being said and taking snippets of consumer-generated content and linking that to your overall brand narrative. So yeah, here's an image of a little bit about what I mean by that. So listening to how consumers perceive value from what's out there about your brand, what significance that they take from that, and that finally creating stories that are expressed through every possible connection that a customer have with the brand, which is at the very core of what IMC is all about. Now, moving towards reciprocity-based evaluation of results has to do with the things I've been talking about this entire semester, and that is focusing on what is value for the consumers. So if you're going to invite people in to co-create the brand message with you, then you also need to focus on how much did each party contribute and what did the customer actually get out of it, not just the value for the business in terms of more customers and increased revenue, but also what drove the value for the customer. Now, this may include having to give something for free, and it's not a simple task, but it really sort of it takes the IMC concept from its very core, focusing on the customer and what the customer how the customer perceives your brand and what value they get out of it. So in an online context where the customer has increased, what's the word I was looking for? They have increased control and power to drive brand narratives. Then we also need to measure the value and the things that the customer gets out of it. Now, it's not a simple task, but I think, in identification, acknowledgement that customers did actually contribute to these things, and awarding, not stealing my chips idea, but actually awarding the suggestions that comes in should be key. There's not a lot of research on this, and this is an emerging topic. I mean, this article is from 2019, so this is fresh stuff. It's an emerging topic, but it may be something how to actually measure this reciprocity-based value of digital integrated IMC. Could be a topic for your honours thesis. So if you're interested in writing an honours thesis, then let me know, and we'll get you enrolled in the program after you're done with your degree. Okay, I'm going to leave you with that, and I'll be back with something more later.